So what's up? This is Ryo Murata, photographer based in Tokyo. When Ryo goes to CP Plus and Pacifico, Yokohama. It's been how many years? Like 4 or 5 years ever since I last opened, and due to the pandemic it was actually closed. And if you guys don't know, CP Plus doesn't mean camera porn. It means camera and imaging show, photo imaging show actually, which opens up every February during this period in Yokohama actually. And CP Plus is more like photography oriented, digital photography oriented. There's another one called Interbee, which happens probably this month or maybe next month after CP Plus, which is more like broadcast TV, videography and cinematography mashed together. So if you're into video and stuff like that, there's a convention for that in Japan. And if you're into photography, CP Plus is for you actually. So going back onto topic, CP Plus is probably the largest camera convention that happens this year actually, and because the pandemic ended, hopefully, I think the organizers thought it was a great time to open up ever since it was last closed for the past 4 years or so. And during this 4-year period, interesting things happened. One, I can continue to work as an e-commerce photographer. I work full-time shooting men's apparel, which I can never afford. In addition to that, I started a YouTube channel, which I basically talk about film cameras and stuff like that. But along with that, you guys probably know, because I make YouTube videos, I shoot video, which also means that I need to gain more knowledge in this field because I'm a complete noob. So I thought it would be nice to sort of like mention this convention for you guys, because it's something that happens once per year and it never happened, and I thought it would be nice to just talk about it. First off, I would like to say my thanks and regards to Marumi, which you guys probably know is a famous Japanese company making ND, high quality ND filters. And I think I made a video on their Natsuhiro Punch and their Alps Punch video, which a lot of people gave comments on, which give you that nostalgic vibe. And they were back in CP Plus ever since 4 or 5 years ago when this pandemic started, and it was like actually a great time seeing familiar faces. And at the same time, if you, like I said, they make really high quality filters, protection filters, UV filters. They make ND filters, CPL filters, you name it all. They have them all covered. And without their filters, my YouTube channels, I mean, it's impossible actually to maintain, because when you shoot video, you guys probably know, your shutter speed is already locked in. Double the speed of the frame rate, 24 FPS multiplied by 2, 1/50th of a second. When you shoot 1/50th of a second outside, you get an overblown, overexposed shot. In order to prevent that from happening, you need an ND filter. And I use their ND8, ND16, and ND64 filters for my YouTube channel when making videos, and without them, it's impossible to make artwork actually. So, and yeah, while I was at it, I forgot to shoot a BTS unfortunately, but they came out, and what's great about these conventions is that manufacturers try to make new products before press release and stuff like that, or they have it released but not many people know about it. And these conventions are great for like experiencing new types of technology that are coming in. Marumi made these sort of like super slim ND filters, I guess aimed at for mostly videographers, but I guess landscape photographers can benefit from this. The thinness is so thin that it's like 1/5 the size of a typical screw-in ND filter. And if you see a typical screw-in filters, it's like relatively, you know, thick, you know, but they made these so thin that you can basically layer them together. You can layer an ND for ND8 or ND16 to get the desired results. And what's great about this system is it has this sort of like magnetic function where you basically slap it on, and if you don't need it anymore, if you go indoors or if you go outdoors, the lighting condition change, so you can basically swap them out and get the job done. And it was really innovative and really interesting to see something like that pop out. After checking up with Marumi's filters, the next booth that I went is a Nanlight, and this is sort of towards YouTube production actually. So I basically use various manufacturers of lighting, and I kind of like failed significantly in this area. Actually, I used a Godox light, entry level light. I used a random LED light, which kind of failed on me. And then right now I'm using Nanlight's LED type of continuous lighting. And this brand, I guess they're not being that much offered or I guess promoted in North America, but during this pandemic, Nanlight kind of flooded the market, especially in Japan actually. And you guys probably know, if you're into continuous lighting or video, the main top contender is Aperture. They make really high quality, sort of like in the tripod world, we would call them Aperture, sort of like Gitsos, you know. I mean, they're built to last, but they're really expensive, right? Nanlight actually sits in between Aperture and Godox, and although they're not too expensive but not too cheaply made, they are really durable. They can get the job done, mostly for indoor use actually. And I actually use their FS150 LED light, which is basically illuminating my face right now. And I have to say that their booth was considerably larger than I expected, and they have like many products being offered, like high wattage, like 300 watt type of like lights if you need it, or smaller Forza like 6 dB type of lights, which are small, portable, battery operated. I mean, what can I get, you know, out of it? So I mean, they're actually a brand that kind of sort of like started moving my YouTube channel forward, and even nowadays I still use it. Really affordable and reliable. At the same time, the color temperature never shifts, and I guess this happens in continuous lighting. If you have a poorly made light, the light quality isn't that beautiful at all. There's some kind of tint going on. It could be cyan or magenta, but this light produces really great results. And yeah, Nanlight. Okay, so next up on the list after Nanlight is Photix. And Photix, I'm not sure if they're like wildly popular in North America, but same as Nanlight, during the pandemic, Photix and Nanlight kind of swept through Japan, and they basically, I guess, a lot of people now use these two brands, I guess, as a combination actually. LED Nanlight, softbox Photix. Photix is basically sort of like a softbox where you attach to your LED light or maybe your studio lights, and they come in sort of like a balance mount kind of offering, which is widely available on most like lighting equipments and flashes. And Photix, it's hard to say, but I currently use their 65 centimeter collapsible softbox, and these are what you call a collapsible softbox, which means that they're like easy to like transport, easy to sort of like maintain and sort of like collapse, because when you're sort of like shooting in a studio and when you finish shooting, you basically have to pack up and stuff like that. Typically softboxes, you basically have to like stick in the rods and you basically have to like press, and it takes like 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes at most, to build a softbox. While a collapsible one, you can get it one done within 3 minutes or so. And if you're like time constrained, they do the job really well. And Photix, on the other hand, compared to other brands like Godox, and there's like so many brands actually, they have so many offerings as of 2023. They have, the one that I use is their smallest one, 65 centimeters, and they go up to 150 centimeters if you're shooting like full body portraits and stuff like that. And they kind of appeal a lot to fashion photographers on the go, actually, on locations. And typically like product photography, you basically don't use that much softboxes. In my case, I use umbrellas and stuff like that, so, or maybe direct flash using a tracing paper and stuff like that. But going a little bit off topic, but softbox is like really easy to use. Just hit light through it and it kind of diffuses the light as what you see on screen, and it gives you the pleasant look. So yeah, Photix is actually I guess a lot of people regard them as a softbox diffuser type of company, but they also make their own LED lights, and they also make stands. And this is something that caught my attention because I'm a studio photographer and I use light stands and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know about light stands. Hard to explain, but it's basically a stand where you put your lights on, and I use Manfrotto light stands. Photix offering of their light stands is like really interesting because their type of like light stands, typically light stands have like 3 corners and it's kind of suspended in the air, mid-air, the way called the center column and stuff like that. But Photix light stand, especially what's it called? I'm looking on their website, Saldo series of light stands actually. It's collapsible, like sort of like a tripod that goes into travel mode. You know, it goes. Tripods typically like fold like this, but the travel type of tripods typically go this, you know, you get what I'm talking about. Their type of sort of like light stands actually fold like this. And what's interesting about their light stands is that they're thicker than a typical portable light stand, and at the same time you can basically sort of like lower the center column to flat on the surface. And I should have taken a photo, which I forgot actually, but what I'm trying to say is when that happens, you get the most stability of all light stands combined actually. And because their light stands is really larger than a typical portable one, they can like lie flat on the ground and you can put a bag on there as dead weight and your stand will never fall down. And it's like really unique, and I thought I wish I had that instead of a Manfrotto light stand, but yeah, dang, I should have purchased that instead. So yeah, and that's another great thing about these conventions, is that there's these like small products that get released but they don't get recognized to the public because the public's already interested in the newest and greatest like cameras and stuff, but the greatest innovations come in these like small dull products such as light stands and stuff like that. So dang, I should have purchased that instead. So I went to Photix softboxes. I went to Leofoto's tripod, and you guys probably heard of them or not heard of them. Leofoto is a tripod sort of like position itself in between Manfrotto and Gitzo. And if you're a photographer, you guys probably know those brands. Manfrotto, more like the budget wise companion, which lasts long actually, while Gitzo's like king of the hills and they're like really expensive. And probably a lot of people, including me, was looking for an alternative in between that price range. Manfrotto's typically $300 to $500, Gitzo's like $1,000 roughly, and there was no sort of manufacturers dominating that, you know, mid segment area, and Leofoto just swept through and they said, oh, you should get our tripods where we sit in between Manfrotto and Gitzo, and they kind of took the whole market away from the Japanese consumers actually. And a lot of people now use their tripods because they're like really versatile. They have so many like types of tripods available, especially their table tripod series. They have like 4, 5, and one of their versions I use every day when I shoot my YouTube video, the Ranger LS223C. Leofoto's tripod 100% are all carbon made, and at the same time their carbon fiber tripods, especially their higher end ones, like the one that I have, the Mr. Q series, they kind of reveal where they source their carbon fiber from, which a lot of manufacturers, tripod manufacturers, never talk about. And Leofoto says that their high-end tripods are sourced from Toray, which is famous for making carbon fiber composites for the Boeing 787 and many other famous aircrafts, and they are built to last, and I had no issues with them, unfortunately. And I thought it would be nice to like mention them on my channel actually. And like I said, what's great about these conventions that they release new products, new innovations along the way. And one of their innovations from Leofoto was typically, same for Gitzo, they have their main sort of tripods use sort of like a twist lock mechanism. So when you twist it, it unlocks. and you can basically extend the the sections, and when you want to like get to that designated length, you can basically lock it in to place, and it kind of locks in. The pros and cons of that is that you have to like really twist it, or else it's gonna like slide out or slide in kind of stuff, and that could be a problematic. And Manfrotto came up with a solution of making sort of like a switch, not a switch, sort of like a latch actually, where you basically clamp it in to stop it from extending, and if you want to like extend it, you can basically open the latch and stuff like that. And Leofoto made a sort of like an innovative version of that. I guess they're not copying, but they kind of made it look stylish actually, and it's the basic similar like functionality as Manfrotto. If you open the latch, it extends, and if you close it, it kind of stops. But it looked really intriguing and nice in my opinion, and I wish my tripod had that instead of a twist lock. So another innovation discovered during these conventions. So yeah, and what's also great about these conventions is that you can basically touch and play, which sounds naughty, but you get what I mean. You can basically touch the tripod, not in a naughty way, but you can basically see for your eyes like how tall this tripod is. I mean, how long will it extend and stuff like that. Sounds bad, but but you can basically feel if you really want that product or not, and these conventions give you that opportunity. You can test new cameras and stuff like that. Although on the website it says like 500 grams, the new XT5 or something. XT5 weighs 400 grams, but in reality, when you hold up that camera, it feels lighter than what you expect and stuff like that. There's these like small incremental discoveries that happen, so it's great going to these conventions. Yeah. Oh yeah, so browsing around, I actually did not go to Sony and Canon because I don't use them, unfortunately. But I went to Fujifilm's booth, and although I did not touch their cameras because I wasn't interested in their XH2S, XH2, XT5, because it has too much megapixels, I kind of skipped over that. I went behind their booth, and what was interesting was behind their booth, they had this sort of like wall having every single film simulation they have engraved in their Fujifilm camera, and below that there was a sort of like a sample photo of what kind of results you would get printed onto paper. And there was this sort of like not a histogram, more like a graph of where each and every sort of film simulation sits on top of each other in terms of like, is it neutral, is it less saturated, or is it like high contrast and stuff like that, which was really interesting and kind of caught my attention actually. After Fujifilm, I actually went to Kenko Tokina booth. Actually, they sell like, because it's like a holding company, they kind of like sell various stuff, and because this company sort of combines Tokina division with the Kenko division. Kenko's famous for their filters, while Tokina's famous for their third-party lenses selection and stuff like that. They have like a lot of things being sold and displayed, and you guys probably seen my like previous video that in that video I basically shot my beautiful face with the Kenko's white mist filter, which kind of makes it a little it looks a little bit hazy, or kind of like dreamy look kind of, and I actually enjoy using this filter in particularly, especially when shooting myself because my face isn't that beautiful. So, and yeah, they had the white mist being sort of like displayed, and at the same time they also have black mist filter being displayed. So yeah, I forgot to mention them, so I mentioned it right now. So yeah, great filters to use. And after Kenko Tokina, it was like really surprising because I don't know the English way of saying it. In Japanese we call it Frisco Jiggly. Frisco Jiggly type of paper was being displayed actually. There was an area where they were displaying Frisco Jiggly, and I'm not like a super artist type of person, so I'm not good at explaining how that function works, and I might be wrong unfortunately, but if you're an artist in that field, I would like to have your sort of the comments, but Frisco Jiggly is sort of like a, how should I say, it's a paper that's sort of like using plaster or stucco. I don't know if that's the right material, but it's a, how should I, it's like a super expensive art paper actually. And I guess if you're in the pinnacle of becoming an artist, I guess most people, Japanese artists, use Frisco Jiggly, but I heard that it was being discontinued, but I don't know why they were being displayed at the CP Plus, because it's for inkjet use, so you can basically shoot a digital photo and you can basically print it onto Frisco Jiggly if you want. And what's interesting about Frisco Jiggly during the, I don't know if that pronunciation is right, but during this sort of exhibit was that they had their like sort of like products being printed onto inkjet and being laid upon this table, and I could basically touch for myself. I could touch and feel what that paper meant, and it's like really hard to explain, but the paper felt wet. And I heard from a teacher back in when I went to photography school that Frisco Jiggly, initially when you print it onto paper, it's like wet. It's hard to explain. It's like wet ink printed onto paper that's sort of like wet, and it takes more than a decade or so for that ink to go into, for it to like sink into the paper. And after that, you basically, for some photographers or some artists, they basically sort of like oil paint, kind of like layer that with another inkjet layer, print it onto there, wait like 5 years or 10 years later, and they print it again to get a mutual graduation in colors and stuff like that. I'm not an artist, so I can't explain it for myself, but some people do that. And because of that process, the ink kind of never dries on that paper. I don't know if that's true, but when I touched it, it felt really wet, and it felt really saggy, if that's the word. Saggy is the word. But yeah, it was actually a great experience because they were being printed on various paper, and you can basically feel that texture, the color, and because it's an art type of paper, art papers typically don't have glossiness to it. It's like a matte finish. So yeah, if you're going it as an artist, I guess that's one way of like producing your artwork. Probably that's going to be impossible for me because that paper is like super expensive, and at the same time it's being discontinued in Tokyo and Japan. So I wonder if they're gonna like resell it. Yeah, I'm basically looking at Yodobashi camera, and they sell for 20 sheets of A3 size paper, $150. That's expensive. Discontinued at the bottom. So yeah, that's basically it. So those are basically the companies that I kind of trust, and the companies I never mentioned. It's not like I don't trust them, but I never use their products as much as I wanted to because I never had that opportunities. Those brands include Tamron, Sigma, Sony, Canon. Obviously, I'm a Fujifilm user. I don't use Canon. I don't use Sony. I don't use Nikon at all, unfortunately. I used to use Nikon DSLRs, but I went to Fujifilm, unfortunately. And other brands that were there were Cosina, famous for their Voigtlander series. If you use a Leica camera, I mean, they had a lot of Leica type of lenses, Noctons and stuff like that. And yeah, that's basically it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully this video is not too long, and I talk too much again. So yeah, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please leave it in the area below. I'm happy to reply. So that's it for CP Plus. Looking for next year. And what was like really shocking about this year was that Manfrotto and DJI wasn't actually being displayed, and I realized that I guess Leo Photo kind of kicked Manfrotto's butt in the tripod space, and I guess DJI is sort of already shifting towards the cinematic, so they might be displayed during Interbee, which is gonna happen this next month or so. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace out.